Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of FinTech Fridays. I am Brian Vieaux, President, Chief Operating Officer of FinLocker. Joining me today for our episode is Amit Ghole. And Amit is the founder and CEO of Inflooens. And as you all know by now, I really love to I always talk about talking to cool people with cool products at cool companies. And I think, Amit, you checked the box on all three of those. Welcome.
Thank you for having me today, Brian. And nice to know that in your mind, we've qualified and checked all the boxes that you mentioned.
Yeah, well, you just before we hit record, you told me about a pretty cool trip you just took over the Thanksgiving holiday. So yeah, that qualifies you. A nice little jump over to Paris to see the lights before the winter season kicks in, huh?
That's correct.
Well, Amit, you and I were connected through a mutual friend, and I started to kind of study up a little bit about what you guys are doing. And I think we'll get into this as our conversation goes, because we're not in the exact space, but we definitely our platforms and the data in our platforms really intersect in a very interesting way. But for those that don't know Influence and that don't know you, Amit, maybe just give a little bit about your story, how you came about founding the company and creating the product, and we'll take it from there.
Oh, thank you very much once again, Brian, for the opportunity. And my background is perhaps a little different from other folks that you talk to from the industry. Foundationally, I'm not from the mortgage industry, and having been in this country and originally coming from India, I've spent majority of my adulthood in this country, and I'm absolutely blessed and feel blessed to be of service in whatever way I can. However, over a couple decades, I also, as a consumer, faced the mortgage origination cycle multiple times, and none of that was fun. On one hand, you had expectations from myself and everyone else, experiences similar to Amazon, where you'll place an order and you get an instant acknowledgement, and you're able to follow through the order right up to your doorstep every step of the way. But on the other hand, the mortgage process is so opaque, and all everybody does, and I soon figured out, it's not just consumers, but it's also lenders, employees. All we do is keep our fingers crossed. And that got me wondering, is there an opportunity there? My background, Brian, I come from as an expert in the Salesforce ecosystem, and for sure know that technology itself is not a constraint anymore, for making things happen and automate things and deliver phenomenal digital experiences. So why is it that things are the way they are in the industry? And that was the motivation we started Influence 5 years ago to hopefully change things.
I love that. There's nothing better than feeling and having going through this process and understanding that there's a problem there, and then using that as the genesis to create a solution. So kudos to you for doing that. The rest of us just continue to grind through this thing over and over and over again. But I think that's where we're aligned. I think where our companies and our products and kind of the mission behind them is to do things in a better way and to leverage data really to drive the experience. So let's kind of peel this onion back a little bit. Maybe it would be helpful for the audience to be able to think about where does Influence kind of exist in the tech stack, if you will? Like what's the best place to describe where Influence kind of lives in the lender's tech stack today?
The other thing about Influence, the approach we're taking is pretty broad. Everyone's talked about the nirvana state, so to speak, in the mortgage industry, as far as what tech is able to do for them, is really provide a single pane of glass to everyone involved. It's I've got one customer that on their marketing page has all of this yarn bundle of technologies that they very proudly display, suggesting to the loan officers out there that they're not shy of making investments into buying the best in the breed of stuff. However, there's not a single system or a single system to log into that is able to contain their end-to-end workflow for loan officers. Similarly, as you take the process to middle office, in the processing game or in the back office where underwriters and closers operate, all of these people have to touch different systems and different sets of datas, and datas are in silo. No one really gets the entire view of what's going on. So what we're doing is bridging all of those silos and using the Salesforce technology as the backbone of the infrastructure, creating a single pane of glass, uniform experience for everyone to really come do their part, collaborate, and provide equal transparency to the left and the right of the process. We discuss synergies in between what we're doing. Those synergies align perfectly in the customer acquisition, customer knowledge space, but there's also a lot of things that we do in the middle office and back office areas of the origination lifecycle.
So is it fair to say that you're not necessarily replacing a loan origination system or a point of sale system or a CRM, but you sit on top of that? Is that kind of the best way to think about Influence as a tool that sits on top of all these platforms and then brings all the information together in one actionable place to work on?
Well, that's a great question, Brian. So, as any technology company with finite resources, so you've got to have a game plan. So that's how we started. But then, once we are able to then, stitch together, so to speak, the silos and bring all of the people and processes together, we're now also going out and building our own core CRM capabilities. We're also going out and building our own point of sale systems. We're going out there and also building out automated underwriting capabilities natively to our platform. And then today, our focus is to be an overlay that sits on top of, so to speak, legacy and slow to operate loan origination systems.
Yeah.
But then, that's the strategy is, to first support the entire flow of data, bring all the people processes together, but then also to, extend those capabilities into our core.
So if I'm thinking about it from a mortgage banker's perspective, there's a world where I keep my Encompass and I keep my Simple Nexus and I keep my Surefire. I'm just naming a couple brand names. And then I have Influence on top. That's one world. And then maybe there's another world where instead of, CRM and point of sale, I'm using Influence for those features, but then I'm still operating on my LOS. And then finally, there could be a world where I have one platform, it's Influence, and I'm doing all of those things, including the consumer side of it inside of your platform. Is that kind of the reality of how you can work with lenders today?
Well, we made a lot of progress since we last interacted, Brian.
Yeah.
So actually, today we have our own point of sale. Today we have our own CRM and also aspects of CRM that are gaps in the mortgage industry, capabilities that the mortgage industry has not experienced. We have some direct integrations to third-party services, some that you would expect, ability to pull credit and run AUS, but also things that, generally you would not expect out of a CRM system. So ability to go out there and pull a drive report from data verify factual data. We have means to do that, ability to run pricing on our own and interact with pricing engines. So we've so far executed 100% on the loan officer workflow and the loan processor workflow. And now we're executing on the underwriter and closer workflow. One of the things I'd like to make as a comment, Ryan, is that, since the subprime crisis took place in 2008, 2009, generally speaking, things have been very well for the mortgage industry up until now.
Yeah.
So innovations took place over a decade, but innovations took place as point systems and point solutions. And lenders have been looking for ways to introduce efficiencies and deliver, higher class borrower experiences. And they were not shy to accumulate all of these systems. But now the IT environment has become fragile, it's become expensive. And one of the core value propositions that Influence has today is we're able to actually help lenders reduce their tech spend via system consolidation. So not
Hmm.
only are we this overlay, but we are actually today able to go out there and replace their point of sale and CRM and a lot many more systems.
Right. Well, yeah, and it's look at the headline for 2023 is the cost to produce, right? You can't pick up a publication that's focused on the mortgage industry without hearing about the average loss that a independent mortgage banker took in Q3, and we're probably going to see that number be a little bit bigger in Q4 because the volume's down. So I think you're on to something that's way overdue in our industry, which is taking down the infrastructure costs, which a lot of times is because we have all these disparate point solutions, as you said, right? Um, so let's. I have some questions that are less product specific, but maybe more philosophical. What are the things that what are the most challenging things that you face in having conversations with prospective clients? Because I can't imagine there's a situation where someone's not looking to lower their cost, however they can do that, but there's probably still challenges for you to get implemented at scale with some of these lenders. What are some of those conversations that you're having that cause some challenges for you?
So thank you. It's funny because our vision and mission is large, it's impactful, and it's been attempted before. My largest challenge was for people to come believe all the words that were coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
So it took a lot of pain and dedication and consistency to keep on building. We were in research and development, bootstrapped for over 4 years before we were able to, put together a demoable minimum viable product that actually did what we were speaking about. And
Yeah.
only then we got, our first significant customer. So the challenge being that, yes, you're speaking all of these things, but it's so hard for people to imagine that it's a possibility. And now that we've overcome that hump, the next challenge is, how do you pitch to a lender? Yes, they want, consolidation and unified infrastructure, but that also means that now we have all of these departments from within the lender's organization that have to come in alignment and in agreement to make a decision. So how do you pitch a broad picture like that, and how do you accelerate the sales process? Because hey, we're still a young company and still cash flow sensitive. So
Yeah.
those are challenges that we still face every day.
Well, you and I we share those same challenges. Trust me. Change management is never easy. And I think our industry, if you kind of look at the history of mortgage banking and go way back to when AUS or desktop underwriter was first introduced, that was like one of the first major change management initiatives the industry faced from a digital perspective, right? And back then there was two factors that were at play. Factor one was the belief factor, right? Why should I believe what you're saying, Fannie Mae, that this black box is going to do what my team over here of 20 underwriters does every day, right? So there's that belief. You got to tell the story and prove it out. But then from a change management perspective, back then, you had to convince underwriters and underwriter management and leadership that this was not going to replace your job, replace your people. It was just going to be a way to scale, make your team more scalable, right? And so, in a lot of ways, we're still faced with this kind of competing pressure where people are hesitant to accept change because it's a threat to their role and their function and their job and their livelihood, and getting people over that hump and understanding that the things that you've built and you're doing aren't to replace people, they're to allow businesses to scale more efficiently. And frankly, if we all were operating on a platform like yours, we wouldn't have these crazy ebbs and flows of staffing that we're faced with today. I mean, are those some of the conversations you're enduring there?
Oh, Brian, and I feel proud of our association also because, I've had several insights into what you're doing at FinLocker, and, you know, transparency, everything is on the basis of transparency and trust. And, when we founded the company, those were the founding principles. So, some of those examples that you gave about change management and, the black box and the fear thereof, that's exactly the state of the industry today is,
Yeah.
there are automations in place, but those remain in the black box. And, in alignment with our founding philosophy of we want to be transparent from day one, we invite customers to come on board and offer them everything as a template. So automated underwriting, sure, based on loan programs, here are set of rules that the industry in general follows. They're 100% exposed to you. Come, feel free to configure and make modifications. But on top of that, also everything is available to you as a framework so that you can now add your own secret sauce and experience that you have accumulated over the years underwriting into the system. So the system does exactly what you tell it to do. And when you show that to the underwriter, when you show that to the processor or the loan closer, and confide in them that, hey, this is your experience just into the system to then empower you to do
Right.
bigger and better things.
Love that. I talk about on LinkedIn. I've had this message a couple times that I put out there talking about specifically loan officers, and the question posed is, do I believe that AI is going to replace the loan officer? And the way I answer that is maybe down the road, whatever down the road is, and down the road could be 2, 5, 10 or more years, who knows? But from now, I don't think the loan officer should be worried about or viewing AI as the threat. The real threat is your competitor that's leveraging AI to be more efficient, more effective, and scale their business. So it's not the tech that's the threat. It's your competitor that's leveraging the tech. And I think there's a lot of parallels with your platform. And I would presume that the clients that are using your platform are the threat to those industry those that are a little aged in the industry that aren't adopting new technology, right? Are you seeing some of that where you've got this kind of forward leaning, more visionary mortgage companies that are tending to gravitate to your tech? Is that a kind of a fair assessment?
Well, so one of the things, we be very careful of with leveraging tech for efficiency to build relationships is exactly that, focus on the relationship aspect more than the transaction aspect. And, tech can help loan officers, I don't like to call it automate their interactions, but make their interactions more interesting via providing them more insights that they otherwise wouldn't have. So arming up with all of these insights backed up with possible knowledgeable solutions to potentially offer in a consultative way, where they also have elements of their personality introduced in the messaging.
Right.
Those kind of things go a long way, that rather than just focusing on a linear transaction and automating the heck out of it to say, okay, how much uplift do I have by putting these automations in place. So, you said a couple of things, basically change management and the fear of and the black box. But, you do things the right way and apply intelligence and apply automations and apply computing, the way to implemented in a way that it focuses on building relationships, then I think that's the way to go. And that's why, we have, some of the largest lenders in the industry, gravitate towards us based on just how we've delivered capabilities.
So a visual that comes to mind as you describe that is, and you said it perfectly. So the mortgage manufacturing process has typically been viewed as very linear, right? We start with an application and we end with a closing, and then all the stuff in between and on either end happens. What I'm visualizing with your platform is more of a 360 evergreen relationship-based experience that's happening with the data and the technology around this consumer, and not just getting them to a point where there's a transaction, but getting them to it and then through it, so that now you're leveraging all this data and all this information for a continued meaningful engagement with that relationship.
That's so nicely said. I'm going to steal that phrase from you. But that's true. Loan origination systems, and it just baffles me, Brian, that I've got customers who we're talking to. They say, hey, our loan officers go and create leads into the prospect folder of the loan origination system. And why would you ever do that? Because the loan origination system has got a singular purpose, that of origination. Every
Right.
time you knock on the door of loan origination system, the first question it asks you is, hey, which loan number?
Yeah.
It never asks you, well, loan, oh, Brian, here's what is going on with Brian. Never, ever. So it's not focused on relationship. But exactly to your point is, we shift that focus away from the transaction to the customer, and the world of new possibilities evolve. I'll give you an example, Brian. We've got this lead management solution, and just by the way, it's a very, very simple solution. That's got nothing to do with AI or any of that, but just laying out data on the screen, summarizing aspects of the credit report when loan officers run credit, and presenting it in a way that naturally would nudge the loan officers to think beyond a specific transaction, right? So for example, you've got a purchase opportunity, but then the credit report's telling you that the lender's got a decent credit score, they've got high revolving debts, they've got some installment debts which are high interest rates, and by the way, you can see on the credit report that they also have some real estate owned. And there's an opportunity additionally for a refinance if you know what you're looking at and how to read that information. And if there was a system to then process that information and in a live environment nudge the loan officer, hey, how about asking for a refinance opportunity or refinance question to the person that you're talking to right now? The person's on the phone.
Right.
How about that? Right. That's what building.
I love that. To me, that transforms the role of the loan officer from a transaction coordinator to more of an advisory type role, because you're helping share insights on a particular consumer's financial picture, and they may not have the same lens into it, and they certainly don't have the same expertise. I love it. And I told that whole concept of this 360 view of the consumer it's pretty powerful, frankly, and we've missed it in this industry for decades. So I'm super excited what you guys are onto. Amit, this has been great. We checked the box on all three. We talked to a cool guy. You got a very cool product and a cool company. I appreciate you spending some time with me on FinTech Fridays.
Thank you so much, Brian, and thanks to be here.